So as a result, we're going to touch on it briefly here, but Wednesday's class is going to deal with specifically translating a verbal expression into an algebraic expression. And it's just a little, the more I'm studying it, I'm trying to refine it and then share it with the believers in the form of how the tech works, word clearing, cycles of actions and whatnot. And then hopefully with the help of Allah, it'll become so easy that when you look at an expression, you'll be able to convert it into a mathematical equation. And the goal is to go from a verbal or a written word to an equation. Then you can also take an equation and then convert it to the written word. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then what I've noticed is, as we discussed on Wednesday, where the minister said that Allah's a scientist who speaks in formulae, he says he doesn't use a lot of words.
Mm-hmm.
He says, and the second scientist looks into the formula and breaks it down. And then he was speaking of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and then he spoke, in my understanding, he was referring to himself when he said, and then he comes and he breaks down the complex truths of the formula. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And the one thing that I have noticed is, as I increase my study of mathematics and equations, and then I go back and either read the minister's words or read the minister's words or listen to what he says, he speaks in formulae such that you can take something that the minister has written and convert it into an equation and then get actually a deeper understanding of other things. Okay.
Yes,
and
sir.
I'll use Brother Batin's words to kind of substantiate this point, in that Brother Batin used to speak about what's called the fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental in music, the fundamental is the note that you hear when someone plays an instrument. When they pluck the note with a guitar, they play it on the piano, you hear a note, but then that note has other harmonics or other notes that are contained in that note. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's a note that you hear, and then there's notes that you don't hear. So when you have the note, that's called the fundamental, but there are as many as 12, I believe the word is overtones or harmonics. So you have one note and you have 12 other notes, just like you have Jesus and the 12 disciples. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the Holy Qur'an, it says Moses struck the rock and out came 12 springs and every tribe knew their drinking place.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at the ayats as allegories that represent other mathematical or spiritual principles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go deeper into that on Wednesday. But tonight, what I wanted to share with the believers is showing the relationship of how to look at an ayat in the Holy Quran like an equation. And then looking at the ayat as an equation. And in an equation, you put an input and you produce an output. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the equation doesn't change. But for every input you place into it, it produces an output. And as I was studying that, I said, man, an equation represents the feminine principle.
Mm.
The seed represents the input, but the woman represents the equation. Does that make sense on a mathematical level?
Yes, sir.
Because then what happens when you put a number into an equation, the equation changes the number, takes the number you input and converts it into the solution. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So an equation, just the way how I look at things, the equation is feminine. The input is masculine. That's just how I perceive it. So I'm looking at the ayats in the Holy Quran from a feminine perspective, from a right brain understanding, what they call in when you deal with the left brain and right brain, the right brain is considered to be feminine. And I also found in something that L. Ron Hubbard spoke about in the early 50s, he made the same reference with regards to left brain and right brain, masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight we're going to look at how we can convert an ayat from the Holy Quran into, by placing inputs, and then we're going to produce outputs that are going to be Dianetics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hopefully it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay. So with that being said and done, okay, let me pull up where is my PowerPoint? Okay, let me turn. I don't need this anymore. Come on, stop playing around. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This may be a 2 or 3 part Zoom meeting because as I'm studying this concept of devil, which I'm going to explain get rid of this. As I'm studying the concept of devil from the perspective of the Holy Quran, I'm finding an incredible amount of ARC with Dianetics. So there's no way to do this with just one class. No way possible. So will this work? Oh, that's how I do it. Okay, that works. Okay, now I can see everybody. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So the first thing is we're looking at the Holy Quran as a book of equations or formulae. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We're looking at the Holy Quran as a mathematical theological book, a book full of formulae. So first, we're just going to clear some terms real quickly with the hopes that the information will flow together. But an equation is a formal statement of the equality or equivalence of mathematical or logical expressions. Okay. So you have in mathematics, you have an expression, and you can have 2 expressions. But once you put an equal sign in between those expressions, that becomes an equation. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the equal sign gives you an equation because you're equating one thing with another. So you're showing a relationship between 2 things. So tonight we're looking at the relationship between Dianetics and Islam, but we're going to do it mathematically. An equation is a complex of numeral, variable, or symbolic factors. You can pretty much summarize an equation as far as the elements that make up the equation or that make up any level of mathematics. They are expressed through either numbers, letters, or symbols. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here I got 3x plus 10 equals 22. Okay. And this is just to show what an equation is. So if you look at the expression on the left-hand side of the equal sign, where it says 3x plus 10, that is just an expression. The number on the right, 22, is just an expression. But the fact that you put an equal sign in between those 2 expressions, that causes it to be an equation. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So expression number 1 is 3x plus 10. Expression number 2 is 22. So the 2 together form an equation. Okay. And if you notice, what is on the left is totally different than what is on the right, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the goal in an equation is that x represents what's called the variable.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of solving the equation is you have to find out the value of the variable that would make both of the expressions to be equal. Okay. And if just so happens that when you clear the word variable using your word clearing technique, one of the synonyms it's going to bring you to is the word aberrant. Just like for some of us, looking at algebra causes restimulation, does it? Does anyone restimulated looking at the algebra? No?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
can
So
can I say something while
of
you at
course,
that point
of
right
course.
there?
Mm-hmm.
This would make me so delayed in the response when you were speaking as far as a synonym for variant. And I see how aberration, when we're aberrated, it can go up and down the time track. It can continuously be a various event, up and down, up and down. So that's how I got to see it also.
Yes, ma'am. This is a needle that was stuck in our brain when we were in school. We could say, here's another equation from English lesson number C1. Why does he fear now that he's a grown man? Because he was taught to eat grown food when he was a child, right? Okay, that's an equation. Now, you could take the word fear out, or you could input with the fear, say fear of algebra. Why does he have a fear of algebra now? Because he was taught to fear algebra as a child, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then as soon as I say that, sometimes some of us go back in the time track and we're right back in the classroom where we have problems with mathematics. Okay. And then we can pinpoint specific events with things that teachers have said, things that teachers have done that have caused the problems that we still have today, but caused the problems that we have in mathematics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we're looking at a relationship between two expressions. So for example, I want you to put your thinking caps on. If I say 2x plus 5 equals 15, what does x equal?
5.
X equals 5, okay? And for those who might have a little trouble, I'll break it down real quick, and then if you want to get deeper into it, this is what we actually go through on Wednesday morning. But you subtract 5 from both sides because the goal is you want to get the variable by itself, correct?
Yes. Okay.
You want to remove everything until you have just the variable. That's kind of like the way it is when we're auditing something, right? We are looking specifically for what's causing the aberration, and we're removing everything else, correct?
Yes, sir.
And once we can pinpoint that x, that's the held down 7, that's the trouble source. Once we can figure out what that x is a person that produced a circuit. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whenever we're auditing, the goal is to get to the root of the aberration. And the root of an aberration, or the elements of an engram, are moments of unconsciousness, pain, and the pain can be physical or emotional. You have a person and you have a circuit. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have to understand, and if you want more detail on that concept, you can go to the YouTube channel. We dealt with this in depth this past Wednesday, looking at auditing from the perspective of mathematics. But just the quick understanding of this is you subtract 5 from both sides. It becomes 2x equals 10. Then you divide 2x by 2. So 2 over 2 equals 1, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And now the 1 you can remove. Why? Because 1 is always present and it's unseen. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Just like who?
Allah.
Okay, Allah is always present and unseen. The number 1 is always present and unseen. So once we can subtract, divide by 2, it leaves us with x equals 5.
Mm-hmm.
Input the 5 back in. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 5, 15 equals 15. Now you know that the problem has been solved, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here we know x equals 5. Now, if I give you this equation, if I say 3y plus 2 equals 17,
Mm-hmm.
what does y equal?
5.
Y equals 5. Okay. Because 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 2 is 17, and 17 equals 17. Now, what's the purpose of doing that? Can I take and switch the x and the y and still come up with the correct answer? In
Yes,
other
sir.
words, can I say 2y plus 5 equals 15? Can I say 3x plus 2 is 17?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone that does not follow that? Everyone follows that? There's no misunderstoods. Let's see, who do we have that's new? Let's see, 219.
Yes, sir.
You good, Sister Patricia?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Let's see.
I got caught in that rain, so I'm getting myself together.
Okay. We have a sister here. I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is it Sister Ina or Sister Ina?
Sister Aina.
Sister Ina. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Ina.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
And how did you hear about us?
Sister Shireen.
Sister Shireen. Okay, she's out there doing
Sherry.
something. Thank you for taking some time to spend with us this evening. I hope, have you studied the Dianetics?
No, I've been audited.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the way we do this is, Ina, is anytime you have a question, just raise your hand. I have no problem with, I prefer questions, and there's no such thing, we've heard this 1,000 times, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Okay. So just, if you have a question, feel free.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So those two equations, are those equations different?
Are they? Yes.
Are they different? Okay. They are definitely different. Go ahead, Sister Diane.
I'm Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm just trying to get an understanding. So are you saying that in this regards, a relationship between two expressions is that what we're talking about in regards to the Holy Quran, as far as algebraic expressions, or that mathematics is Islam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was.
No, you see it. You see it. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what we're saying, because let's look at this for just a split second. If we look at problem number 13, and it says, if I'm correct, it says, after learning mathematics, which is Islam, and Islam is mathematics, it stands true, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, problem number 13 is implying that mathematics and Islam are equivalent, yes?
Correct, if it comes to the same answer.
Okay. Then it speaks about what's called a mathematical theology, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're going to go a little deeper into this in a minute, but I'm going to cover it now because this is where we are right now. In mathematics, there's something called the law of substitution. And the law of substitution states, if you have two things that appear to be different, but they're equal, you can substitute them into different equations and still have the same, come up with the same answer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, like 5 plus 5 is 10, or 2 plus 8 is 10.
Exactly. Okay, there's different ways where you can come up with the same answer by the law of substitution. With that same principle in mind, can we say that algebra is the same as mathematics?
Oh, that's a good question. Because algebra is a form of mathematics.
Okay. Now, can we say that trigonometry is a form of mathematics?
It is, because it also because there's reasoning behind it. With trigonometry or calculus, there has to be a formula.
Yes. Now, Sister Diane, if you don't mind me asking this, what level of math have you ever put your mind into to study?
Pre-calculus, calculus, advanced mathematics.
Okay, good. No, good. So, calculus is mathematics applied to change, correct? On small levels?
Yes.
Okay, trigonometry is just mathematics applied to triangles.
Correct, like geometry, but it's
exactly. Geometry is mathematics that's applied to shape. Mathematics is a word that encompasses all of them, correct?
Correct.
Now, would that also imply not only is there a mathematical theology, would there also be an algebraic theology?
Yes, I would say yes.
Would there be a theology of calculus?
Correct, there would be.
There'd be a theology of trigonometry.
Yes.
So if you clear the words mathematics and theology, the word theology means the study of the nature of God and his relationship to man, and spiritual principles, rules, and rituals, if I'm not mistaken. And then we look at mathematics being the study of numbers and their operations and their arrangements. And one way of looking at mathematical theology is the study of Allah, his nature, and his relationship with man through the language of numbers and their operations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then algebraic theology is just the study of our Islam through the language of algebra. A theology of trigonometry is the study of God and his relationship with man through the language of trigonometry. So we can take physics. Can we say a theology of physics?
Yes.
Because physics is just math applied to the forces in nature.
Correct.
So everything is a theology. So problem number 13 is an equation. And if you take the word mathematics and you substitute the word algebra, it's still true. Does that make sense?
That's true. It does.
So after learning algebra, which is Islam, and Islam is algebra, it stands true. You can always use it in no limit of time.
That's true, because just like theology is study, the basic principle would be the study of religions, or the basic of spirituality, or to man's relationship to God. I mean, everything is in a divine order. So just like mathematics, it has to be in order for it to get to the same correct answer.
Yes. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says it like this. Torchlight for America, page 48 to page 51. He says 2 key points. He says, 1, you have to place Allah, God, at the center of your educational system, and you have to study any concept as if you're studying yourself. Do you remember him saying that?
Yes,
okay.
I remember.
So when we study any level of mathematics, physics, or science, and when I discern between physics and science, I'm talking about life science, biology, cardiology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and I separate that from physics. Those are 2 different categories for me. Whenever we're studying any field of mathematics, science, or physics, we are studying the rules and principles that represent in a mathematical language the workings of the universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
And now if we are of the universe, then as we study the mathematics, the physics, and science, aren't we studying ourselves?
Absolutely.
absolutely, that's true.
Okay. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Okay, with all this theology going on, I was listening to the theology at time earlier and had a couple of cognitions while you both were speaking. And I'll start with something, Brother Jabril. He has a lecture out, and in one part of the lecture, he talks about numbers, and of course, he talked about the drop down and rotate number 6, and then he said he was going to get back to it at a later time. I just never caught the next lecture that he fulfilled the meaning. He said numbers are more than quantity.
Mm-hmm.
It represents more than quantity. He said it represents movement, but I'll get into that at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and listening to the theology at time is something you just said, Brother Luke Mom, that makes something so abundantly clear. And I didn't even finish. I don't even think I was an hour in the theology at time. And it's just so heavy and plainly spoken as we go into problem number 13. It seems to me, as a scientist along in my classroom with other scientists, that if we consider any equation or theology of whatever form of mathematics that we are considering to work out a problem, if, like in Dianetics, we do not have all available data,
Yes.
people have that held down 7 all the time and never come up with the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you said, the minister saying, in order, in the educational paradigm, I believe that came from, in order for this education in America to go to the standard that it should, because I think at that time we were number 54.
Yeah, we're terrible.
Yeah. He said, because you took a lot out of the schools.
Yes.
So that is the data that is necessary in order to get the right answer. So I just wanted to share that cognition.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes. With math and science, we are so far behind.
Mm-hmm.
Around number 1, number 2 for TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so these equations are different. Now, what we're doing is this is just laying a mathematical foundation of how we're going to look at the Holy Qur'an.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Holy Qur'an as a book of equations, not just ayats that we read during Ramadan, but these are formula. And I'm going to share with you, by the grace of Allah, how taking on a different perception of our teachings allows us to see from a different perspective what we already have. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What this tells us is things can appear to be different outwardly and have the same meaning. In other words, that X and a Y, if I just showed you X and showed you Y, you would say those are 2 different letters, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if I said X equals Y, if you didn't understand the mathematical context, you would think that Brother Lukman was aberrated, because you say X can't equal Y. Those are 2 different letters. But when you understand mathematically that even though the X and Y are 2 different letters, they have the same meaning, this implies, through what's called the law of substitution, if I look at the meaning of the numbers and not stay superficial on the difference between, the letters,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm able to see past the difference and see that the 2 letters are really saying the same thing. Does that make sense?
Right. Come on now, Brother Lukman. I see you.
So before one judges, one should examine.
Mm.
The minister gave us instructions to study the tech of Dianetics.
Mm-hmm.
Many individuals passed judgment before they even took the time to examine. It's one thing to study the Dianetics and then you say, you know what, I don't know why the minister put us on this. But had we taken the time to study the tech the minister said this. He said, this is something that already belongs to us.
Come on now.
L. Ron Hubbard studied the ancient writings of the East, and there's one book called The Creation of Human Ability. He says the source, when you take everything in Dianetics, he's saying the source of his study comes from the Asiatics.
Absolutely.
So the minister was right on point when he said, this belongs to us. When he talks about the 50,000 years, this is L. Ron Hubbard talking, 50,000 years goes back to Shabazz, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then L. Ron Hubbard says in one book, A History of Man, he talks about the history that goes back 76 trillion years. Where did he get that from?
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in the tech that belongs to us. And the minister said that us having the supreme wisdom was like having a safe full of riches, but we lost the combination. And those that have been studying the tech for whatever amount of time, you can see that through the use of the tech, we have been able to crack open our lessons on a whole nother level now, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So basically what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a word from the Holy Qur'an in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do what's called word clearing, and then show how there's a word in Dianetics. Two words might look different on the surface, but if you go past the surface, if we stop being surface Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
and as the minister said, gold is never close to the surface. You have to dig down deep to get the gold, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
So what we want to do is we want to be Muslims that are going to dig. We look past the difference in the surface and we get to the point we say, oh, what? These two words are really saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal of what we want to cover tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So outward appearances can be deceiving. Okay. Superficial understanding can lead to ignorance. And
Absolutely.
that's what happened when the minister put us on the study of the text. There was a separation,
Mm-hmm.
and the separation was based upon. Here you have a man that many said, this man saved me from this. He saved me from that.
Mm-hmm.
The minister, I'd be dead, and yada yada yada. And then the minister says, study Dianetics. Oh, he done lost his mind. So first you say, Hosanna, Hosanna highest, and then you say crucify him.
Mm-hmm.
The same one that saved you from whatever it was you were suffering from, or saved us from whatever we were suffering from. When that man says, okay, study this, we should have already built up enough trust to say, you know what, I don't fully understand it, but the minister's not going to steer me wrong, number one.
Absolutely.
Number two, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, where he says go, go, and where he says stay from.
Come on now.
Okay. And for those who aren't on the text, and if you've never seen Savior's Day 2011,
You better come on now.
Your assignment is to go back and watch Savior's Day 2011.
Yes.
That is your assignment.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, most definitely. So words, terminology, and concepts can have the same effect, meaning what? You can have two concepts that look different on the surface, but if we take the time to study both concepts, we will understand these concepts are really saying the same thing. We can look at different religions and we think the religions are saying something different because there's different terms, there's different symbols, there's different words, there's different languages. But if we take the time to study the different religions and we go deeper into the different religions, we will see that Buddha is saying the same thing that Jesus said, and Jesus is saying some of the same things that Prophet Muhammad said, and Prophet Muhammad is saying some of the same things that Zoroaster said, and Zoroaster is saying some of the same thing that Baha'u'llah of the Baha'i faith. All these prophets are really saying the same thing on many levels, but they came in different time periods and different languages and different areas of the world. So the symbolism, the vocabulary, the terminology is going to be different. But when you look at mathematics, and I'm throwing this question out for Sister Diane and specifically, Sister Diane, how many numbers exist in the universe? Is she still on? Yes, she's still on.
Still on, yeah. How many numbers are in the universe?
Yes, ma'am.
It's unlimited? Are you saying from 1 to 10?
We know there's 10 numbers in the mathematical language.
Right.
Okay. But if
But
we
how
ask
many numbers in the
question,
universe?
how many numbers actually exist?
I can't answer that really. I think it's an unlimited amount of numbers that can exist.
Well, let's look at it like this. If you take any number and you do what's called factoring, what number is a factor of every number?
What number is a factor of every number?
So if I factor the number 6, I'm going to
Right.
get 1 times 6, I'm going to get 2 times 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay, if I factor 8, I'm going to get 1 times 8.
It's 8, 2 times 4, or
1 times 8.
8, yeah, 1 times 8, yeah.
So when you factor any number, what number is always a factor of every number?
1.
1. Are any of those numbers a factor of 1?
No, they're not.
Every number is dependent upon 1. And when you say 2, what's 2? 2 is nothing more than 1 plus 1, correct?
Correct.
What's 3? 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Plus 1, or 1 plus 2.
Or 1 plus 2. But the bottom line is there's really only one number that exists, but it has an infinite number of ways it manifests itself. Just like, say Allah is one. There's only one God, but that one God manifests his wisdom in an infinite number of ways, correct?
Correct. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Angela.
4,400,000,000. I just had to throw that out there real quick. I forgot what I had my hand up. I'm gonna put it down. I forgot.
Okay. Well, do like I do, Sister Angela. I keep a piece of paper in front of me and I write down stuff because I fly off on a tangent in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay. So by understanding the various meanings of words, we can build ARC. And for those that don't know what ARC is, that's affinity, reality, and communication between different schools of thought, ideologies, and beliefs. So then if we sit down with a Buddhist, and if we know something about Buddhism, then we can have a conversation with a Buddhist.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Okay, I remember now. So these, which you had an X and a Y, and looking at it on a face value, it seems different, but it takes more of a substantial look to look deeper to see that they're the same.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see that on a level that plagues us right now. Most of our arguments are from gross misunderstandings. We're saying the same thing. We're just saying it in a different formula. And that brings me to supreme wisdom, because, you know, it came up in class. How did the devils cause the righteous people to fight and kill one another? They took information and it made it appear different, which made it look like a lie. And it's caused the fighting and killing among the righteous. So I see that difference. Had the righteous at the time look deeper into who was bringing the information, a new person, and knowing that no matter how different me and my brother or me and my sister are, we are the same. That's what I wanted to touch on.
Yes, ma'am. See, what the enemy does is the enemy plays on words. So you have what's called, in the study of logic, you have what's called the ambiguous term. And what the ambiguous means is something that's not clear.
Right.
Now, if you want to go to school on how to do this, take any interview that the minister has done and study it. Because individuals will come to the minister and say one thing, and they'll come to him with what's called fallacies. And we'll get into that at another time. But what the minister does is he clears the word first before he answers the question.
Right. He does.
The minister don't fall into the trap. He says, well, if you're using this word to mean this, case in point, the minister is a racist. So then what the minister do? The minister cleared the word racist. He cleared the suffix, one that studies race. He says, now, if you're saying that I'm a racist, you know, as a one who studies the violin is a violinist and one who studies chemistry is a chemist, then if I study race, then yeah, based on the definition of that word, I am a racist. I do study race. So he takes their argument from them.
Come on, man.
He does to them mentally what the assistant supreme captain does to people physically. He disarms them, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's about studying words.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if an equation is a formal statement of the equality or equivalence of mathematical or logical expressions, can we use the law of substitution to find equivalence between the terminology of the tech of Dianetics and the wisdom of the Holy Qur'an? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to apply mathematical principles to get a better understanding of the Arabic in the Quran and the terminology used in Dianetics. Can we use the ayats like formulae to gain a deeper understanding of Dianetics? And the answer is emphatically yes. So our learning objectives are: one, we want to use the ayats of the Holy Quran like formulae or equations. And if you want the exact words the minister used with regards to Allah as a scientist who speaks in the language of formulae, go to The Time of What Must Be Done, The Great War, and there was a lecture that was done in Mas Mariam, and go to the 1 hour, I think it's the 1 hour and 55-minute mark. I believe that's where it is. And the minister drops it about Allah as a scientist who speaks in the language of formulae. Second thing, we want to use the law of substitution to evaluate the principles of Dianetics through the use of the equations or the ayats in the Holy Quran. And we want to identify the principles that support the concept of the reactive mind, engrammic commands, and circuits that are contained in the Holy Quran. Yes, Allah says in the Holy Quran, and on the day when we raise up in every people a witness against them from among themselves, and we bring thee as a witness against these, and we have revealed the book to thee explaining all things, and a guidance and a mercy and good news for those who submit. Now, question. Does it say, and we have revealed the book to thee explaining all things except Dianetics?
All things.
Does it say, and we've revealed the book to thee explaining all things except the science of the mind? Anyone?
No, sir.
Okay. So that means we have a book that explains all things. But we have to get deeper in our study to find the gold and the jewels that are contained in the Holy Quran. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the minister says in Closing the Gap, I can't remember the page number, but I know, Sister Angela, you're a Closing the Gap scientist. It's where the minister talks about his extemporaneous ability. And the reason why I remember that word is when I first came across it, the first thing I had to do was clear it.
Go look it up. Yes, sir.
He says he doesn't like intellectual cowards. He says who just repeat what they've been taught and don't dig in and find the jewels that Allah shows them.
Mm-hmm.
You remember? Do you remember where about that might be?
I don't remember exactly where it is, but I do remember reading it.
Okay, go ahead, Brother Timothy.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. I was just thinking about when you was talking about a book that explains all things, and it's a lecture the minister has called, I think it's called Muhammad the Book. And what it made me think about is that, you know, you have a book, but you also have a man that's representing the book. So it's nothing that really the minister hasn't touched on. So it's like, so it's a book that explains all things. That made me think about the Honorable Ms. Louis Farrakhan, how he's touched on pretty much every subject. If we have an issue, he's touched on it. So that's just something that I was thinking about.
Yes,
or
sir.
if you can ask him a question about something he necessarily may not be well versed in, but he knows something about it. He can give you, if you could be a carpenter, but he can tell you, so he can look into that and you know, and give you information. So he's a book that explains all things. So.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uses that theology.
It's Closing the Gap, page 116.
Come on now.
And it says, I mean, my book, I got the, I don't know if you can see my book, but I have the tabs and my book is all raggedy and whatnot. But
Yes, sir.
there are certain pages you can open right to it because it's already creased. He says, but he says they seem to be afraid to dig into his words to find all the jewels that were in the word. But I call that intellectual cowardice, wanting to be safe, but not wanting to explore the depth of what this man had gotten from God. So I decided I was not going to do that. I was going to dig into the teachings and expose that which God showed me. Now we're told that the Savior came to break the circle of the gods in order to hopefully prepare all of us to get into that circle, correct?
Yes, sir. That's 104 right there. Closing the Gap, sir.
Okay, see, science.
I memorized that one.
Okay. So now, and I'll give you a case in point. First chapter of Message to the Black Man. Does the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad not say that the law of mathematics does not allow us to put 1 into 3?
Oh, yes.
That's what he said, right? What is the law of mathematics that supports his statement? We haven't taken the time to study that. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it. Not that we have to prove it, but how could we prove that? Is there a law in mathematics that you can provide? And maybe we'll do that on Wednesday. I can show you one of the laws of mathematics that proves the messenger correct. There is a law. Okay, it's called the division algorithm. And God willing, I'll share that on Wednesday. But the bottom line is, all of us have to study.
Yes, sir.
We have to find the jewels that Allah has put in each and every one of us individually. All of us represent a book. Remember, I don't think it's a coincidence that Yaqub took 60,000 people to Patmos. I don't think it's a coincidence that there's 60,000 books on mathematics. So what if each one of us as a believer represents a book on mathematics, science? It says mathematics, science, teaching, and higher learning, I think it is, in our problem book. But we represent a book.
Yes, sir.
Now, explanation of all things. If the Holy Quran provides an explanation of all things, then it provides an explanation of how the mind works. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if you look at study guide number 9, I believe it is, our intimate relationship with Quran. And if you look at the opening letter to the study guides, the minister speaks about, it's either the minister or Sister Dr. Ava, may Allah be pleased with her, speaks about the resurrection, Al-Qiyamah. And the footnotes for that chapter, which is Surah 75, talks about 3 levels of nafs: nafs amara, nafs lawama, and nafs mutma'inna. And the nafs lawama represents the self-accusing spirit, correct? Well, the word nafs in Arabic means mind. So nafs amara, the word amara in Arabic means, the word is amar. Amar is that part of man that incites him to evil. So nafs amara, wouldn't that be the same as the reactive mind?
Yeah.
Okay, but just to give an example. So now if this is true, and it is, then it, meaning the Holy Quran, contains the principles, axioms, and postulates and equations and laws that govern the operation of the mind, because it says an explanation of all things, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it has to include how the mind operates, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but now the Holy Quran, the way, from my humble opinion, Allah teaches us in the Holy Quran based on allegory, yes?
Yes, sir.
So does not Allah teach us in the Holy Quran based on pictures from creation? And the
Yes,
clouds,
sir.
when they come over and they draw water, and when the boats
Mhm.
are on the sea, and the Allah gives us things from creation and says, and there's wisdom in this for those who ponder, for those who understand.
Mm-hmm.
So the Holy Quran, Allah is speaking to us through the language of what's called in Scientology called demo kits. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And closing the gap on page 19, it said that that's how the Savior used to teach the believers. He would teach them using pictures. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you study neuroscience, it is the right side of the brain that learns through incorporating wisdom from pictures, and that is the feminine side of the brain. So when we say a nation can rise no higher than its woman, that's true externally and it's true internally, because one does not get wise unless we actually use both sides of the brain. When the minister teaches, he's teaching from both sides. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. So since Dianetics is the science of the mind and contains the elements stated above, then Dianetics can be found in the Holy Quran. And we're going to prove that point. We're going to prove that. Go ahead, Sister Patricia.
Yes, sir. You said that, okay, is that a certain kind of person, or is it the more we study that we can teach from both sides of the brain?
All of us, when you, there's a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess by, the author's name is Leonard Schlein. Excellent book. He's a neuroscientist. And basically, one of the things that he says is when you deal with the civilizations, he's talking about Black folks. When you talk about the Incas, the Aztecs, the Dogon, the ancient Egyptians, we as a people are considered to be dual-brained individuals. We use both sides of our brain. That's why when you look at our languages are based on what's called hieroglyphs or pictures. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay, so when you deal with hieroglyphs, you have to understand the wisdom that's contained in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened was when the European came and conquered our lands and looked at our artwork and our books, this neuroscientist said that they were left brain dominant. They couldn't look into the picture and extract the wisdom. And that's why they burned a lot of our stuff, because they couldn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But we as original people, we hid our wisdom in a way that you can look at it, but you wouldn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like that. So what did he do? He tried to destroy and burn everything, not knowing that that ancient wisdom that comes from the universe itself is written right in the DNA of the original man. So we can reproduce that book all over again once we get to a certain level of our development. So all of us in this room are dual brain, but the Western civilization, our educational system does not teach on dual brain understanding. It's very, very left brain heavy.
Right.
Okay. So our lessons, and that's one of the reasons why I would say this. I would say that one reason why we've had problems with the problem book is because the problem book is written in a way, this is just my humble opinion, to reawaken the feminine side of our brain. And we can't do that from a Western educational paradigm. The minister is teaching us from what we can call a dual brain understanding, and our teachings are based on dual brain. But we've had problems with the problem book and the supreme wisdom because we're trying to look at it from a left brain perspective, and you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the minister said, the problem in the problem book aren't meant to be solved literally. He said they're not meant to be solved literally. There's more in it. There's the numbers mean something. There's more in it. Okay. Go ahead, Sister Shireen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
I just heard Brother Jabril say, in order to unlock the supreme wisdom, we have to study and be more spiritually purified. So it just clicked when you said about us being dual brain and the way that the problem book was written. It wasn't necessarily meant for us to solve it in the way we've been trained to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I get a headache and start hyperventilating every time I look at it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Look at it like this. And this is just something that popped in my head as you were speaking, Sister Shireen. In our problem book, doesn't it talk about the Panama Canal? Now, when you look at the Panama Canal,
wonder why, how did we get to the Panama Canal? I start wondering, why is he asking this? What is this? And about the lakes and the man using gallons of water and
yeah.
Navy told him not to use no more water. And I'm like, I don't get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll share with you my baby kindergarten understanding, the little bit, the tiny bit. The minister says, if you take the wisdom that we have and you put it on the head of a pin, there's still room to run around on, right? Okay, so this is just the baby understanding that I have. It's not so much at this level for us to solve the problem. You can study the Panama Canal, but you can extract a lesson. Now, this is what I heard the minister teach on, but I'm going to make it applicable to Dianetics. Okay, now, when you study Panama Canal, they're trying to get a quicker route to get from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, you got to think like a mathematician. What does the Atlantic Ocean represent, and what does the Pacific Ocean represent?
United States.
No, let's go, kind of, but let's look at it from different level. Where do the storms normally take place?
Turbulence to peace.
They from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the word Pacific. What's the root word of the word Pacific?
Pacify.
Which means what?
Peace.
Peace or calm.
Oh.
Okay. See, the Savior is giving us pictures. If you read page 19 of Closing the Gap, it says the Savior gave the believers pictures. That's the way you teach babies.
Mm-hmm.
And that the truth is contained in the picture. The truth is not the picture. The truth is contained in it. And the longer you keep that image in your mind, the more truth you can extract. So now watch this. So we're using the Panama Canal as a demo kit to go from turbulence to a state of peace. And it's done in 3 levels. So now what happens? You get to the first lock, the doors close, the water raises up, and they take you out to the second lock, correct? The second level. Then the ship goes through, the doors close behind the ship, then the water is increased and it brings the ship up to the 3rd level. And then when those doors open at the 3rd level, the boat can go through, the doors close. So now, instead of the boat taking the long way around the southern tip of South America to get from a turbulent state to a calm state, it found a quicker route to make the cut across. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, what if we take that and apply it to the tone scale? Could we say the first lock is from 0 to 2.0? Could we say the second lock is the area of 2.5? And can the third lock be 3.0 and above? So we went from aberration to peace in 3 levels, going up the tone scale. Okay. So the problems in the problem book are not meant specifically to be solved literally. In my baby understanding, I'll say, look at what's spoken of in the problem book and just go study that concept and see what you find. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Sister Shireen, you had another question?
Oh, no, sir. I just didn't lower my hand.
Okay, that's all right. Not a problem. Okay. So does that make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's keep moving.
Yes, sir.
Allah says in the Holy Quran, and certainly we made the word to have many connections for their sake, so that they may be mindful. That's Surah 28, ayat number 51. I see you, Sister Ania. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
When you asked the question, what do those two oceans represent, the Pacific and the Atlantic? What came to my mind was the two that they represent, two different hemispheres of the world. Oh, wow. And I liken that to the two hemispheres of our brain, the left and the right. And then the fact that we're not able to make the connection between the two because we have these locks on our brain.
Oh, yeah.
As it talks about in Dynetics.
Yes. So now then, based on our positioning of where we are in North America, the Atlantic Ocean would be in the left hemisphere and the Pacific Ocean would be in the right. Wouldn't that be correct?
Yes, sir.
So based on what you're saying is we're having a hard time waking up the feminine side of our thinking. Could that be correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And the locks could be what was placed in our brains from being in this educational system. I like that. I'm glad I thought of it. Thank you, Sister Annie.
Allahu Akbar. Thank you so much.
That was a good one, Sister Annie. I appreciate that one. Okay. So we look at many connections. In Arabic, the word is wasala. Wasala. It means to connect, to join, combine, or to link. So when we find the words that are synonymous, can we say that it's synonymous with agreement or ARC? Can we say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we look at wasala in Arabic, it also means to carry, convey, transmit, or communicate. So then if Allah has given us many connections in the Holy Quran, then does that mean that he's given us many messages or many methods to transmit wisdom? Can we say that? Can we say that there's many roads to obtain access to the wisdom of the Holy Quran? Can we say that?
Yes, sir.
The word wasala means to form an uninterrupted sequence. Well, in Dianetics, that's called a cycle of action, correct?
Yes, sir.
A continuous chain or lines of communication. So if the Holy Quran has many connections, then it has many lines of communication, yes? Has many messages. So all of these concepts also describe the concept of the algorithm and an equation. So based on the law of substitution, we could say the law has given us a book that has many algorithms or many equations. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the law of substitution, can we find Dianetic tech in the Holy Quran? Yes. So what we're going to do is this. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to substitute the concepts for the reactive mind or the genetic entity wherever we find the word devil. I'm just going to make that substitution. And then once we make that substitution, we want to identify the Arabic word that could be the equivalent to what would be called a demon circuit or an engrammic command. And for those who don't know, I'm going to define those so we understand what they are. Okay, so in a nutshell, we're taking an ayat. We're looking at the word devil. We're going to take the word devil out, put in the word reactive mind. And everything in that ayat that is being spoken of with regards to the devil, we're going to see by clearing the Arabic if it's saying the same thing about the reactive mind. Does that make sense? And if we can do that, then that would be proof on one level that the tech of Dianetics is in the Holy Quran, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, but it's given to us in the Holy Quran in the language of allegory. And we know the rules of interpretation is some of the verses are decisive. They're the foundation of the book, and some are allegorical. So we're going to use both in the same way to find the tech in the Holy Quran. So what would be the result? We will gain a better understanding of Dianetics by using the Holy Quran. Also, we are able to understand the text and then bring it back home in our own language. The minister wanted us to go and study the text, but he wanted us to bring it back in our language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if we can do those things, we can start to administer what we could call perhaps Quranic processing. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm.
The reactive mind, which is also called the genetic entity. In the book one, Dianetics, he speaks about the reactive mind and the engram bank. Further along in the text, he makes reference to what's called the genetic entity. Okay. And if you want some good biblical reference, if you go to the 7th chapter of Romans, and I believe at one time, Sister Peggy, I think you dropped that jewel out there for us as well. Chapter 7 of Romans. If you look at the metaphorical language where it talks about there's a law, the law of my members is at war with the law of my mind. That's what's going on with us right now. It's our spiritual self, which is our real self, and we're at war with our physical body. Our physical body is our biggest problem right now. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
But I'm gonna give you some science to show why that is the case. Okay. And the science I'm going to share with you is actually in agreement with the tech of Dianetics, but I'm hitting it from another angle. It's another book that I'm studying right now that actually is in agreement with it's in agreement with How to Eat to Live, and it's also in agreement with Dianetics, but it's coming from a different source. The body is the storehouse for our trauma. Okay. So
Brother,
go ahead. Who's that?
Is the on that last slide where it had reactive mind, genetic entity, the body is the storehouse for trauma. Is the storehouse for trauma the reactive mind, or are reactive mind and genetic entity the same thing?
Yeah, the reactive mind and the genetic entity are the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. But now I'm glad you brought that up. Let's narrow this concept down. The physical body is the engram bank. The physical body is the reactive mind.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
When we fast, and then all of a sudden we get a taste for something sweet, does not the body place an image in our mind of what it desires for us to go get?
Yes.
Okay. Brother Timothy, did you catch an image? Did you just get re-stimulated? Huh?
A reoccurring event.
Okay. And then what we say is, I'm not going to have that right now. But our physical body, our reactive mind, the engram bank, the genetic entity is like a child that says, Mama, can I have? Can I have? Can I have? And then finally say, hey, take these cookies and get the hell out the kitchen, stop bugging me. So now the child walks out, the child won, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the reactive mind. So the child is a demo kit of what the reactive mind does. The reactive mind will do everything it can in its power to lie and deceive us to get the piece of cake or the cookie or the ice cream or whatever it wants. Our reactive mind does the same thing, but the reactive mind doesn't say ice cream. The reactive mind shows us the banana split with the caramel running down the side and the nice finely sliced bananas on top. You know what I'm talking about? I must be the only one. Maybe I'm the only one that's aberrated.
No,
oh no, you're not the only one. I just don't.
Somebody else was going to say.
Okay. So really, when you study Dianetics, wherever you see the reactive mind and the engram bank, and we're gonna show more science to prove this, he's talking about the physical body. The body is the reactive mind. And what we have to understand, believers, is that we are not, I say this in all capital letters, with neon and lights glowing, we are not this physical body. We are the energy, the eternal part of Allah that is dwelling in this organic computer suit. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
This is an organic computer that we use while we're here, in the words of Mother Tainetta Muhammad, that we use while we're in this three-dimensional time and space. Did I lose anyone on that one?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. You're right on time with that.
Okay, let's nail this home. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, whenever I say that, that means stable datum, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe it's page 9 in Message to the Black Man. It says this: so that first guy who created himself from triple darkness is no longer here, but his person exists in his people today.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if his person exists in his people today, then who are we in the Zoom meeting with right now?
Allah.
We are Allah divided up into 15 containers, but we have to be reminded now that we are Allah. Okay, we forgot, but that was by design, because we had to forget in order to allow the enemy to rule. We had to be put to sleep, but now a perfected one has made his appearance, and now he's waking up the rest of us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Brother Timothy.
So when you were talking about the child being equivalent, like, to the body, and I was thinking about the verse in this, I think it's Genesis 25:23, where it talks about 2 nations are in the womb, and the older shall serve the younger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the body, the reactive mind is pretty much comes in a sense, it imposes itself on the analytical mind. You know what I mean?
The older will be enslaved by the younger, correct?
Exactly. Yes,
okay,
sir.
Keep in mind, the Thetan, the spiritual part of us, who we really are, is older than this physical body.
That's right.
So the older is enslaved by the younger.
That's right.
So that's right on point. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Brother Timothy.
All praise is due to Allah. Thank you, sir.
Reactive mind and genetic entity. We're making good time so far. So now this comes from a book called, this is, where do I have it? The Creation of Human Ability. The Creation of Human Ability. And it says the reactive mind comes into being as a servant. Now remember, whenever I say reactive mind, think physical body. Comes into being as a servant of the analytical mind. See, the older and the younger, right, Brother Timothy? And is set up by the analytical mind to work upon and store data about the basic uncertainty that there might be something and there might be nothing. So it's almost like the spiritual side of ourself produced this physical body so we can study the universe that we created. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. It says, but the reactive mind / the physical body then continues in growth. And from the servant, if the analytical mind does not observe it, tends to become the master. So when our physical body has gained mastery of the individual, that's where you get what's called the coins, COINS. And what are the coins? Compulsion, obsession. C for compulsion, O for obsession. I stands for insanity. N stands for neuroses. S is psychosomatic, even though we know psychosomatic starts with a P, but the P is silent. So the way you remember those things, just remember the word coins. In other language, we can call that habituation, habit, compulsion, or addiction. The hard part about the tech, or not the tech, but our belief system is all of us came from some type of compulsion, habits, or addictions. And some of us may still be wrestling with that today. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Unless there's any here besides Sister Angela who dropped down from the mothership to be here. Is there anyone here that's visiting from the mothership? Otherwise, this is a room full of aberrated individuals. Does that make sense?
I bear witness.
That's why I got kicked off. I was aberrated.
You're raising too much hell up there, Sister Angela? So the physical body is the reactive mind. So these are two. The reactive mind is an expression. Human body is an expression. You put an equal sign in between it, and now you have an equation. The reactive mind is equal to the physical body. Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the physical body is the storehouse for trauma. Now let's go into do a little science now. There's a book called Molecules of Emotion by Dr. Candace Pert. Excellent book to read. Excellent book. And in her research, what she had found was different emotions actually have different molecules. So emotions aren't just some, arbitrary thing no, this is all based on chemistry. This is based on chemistry. She says that in the book, it says depressed people are stuck in a disruptive feedback loop that resists any kind of drug therapy that aims at suppression of the steroid. So now I'm gonna translate this. Remember, how many of us grew up watching Sanford and Son? Y'all remember Sanford and Son?
Yes, sir.
Okay, remember when Hoppy and Smitty used to come in and speak to Lamont and Fred, and Smitty would say, and yeah, we able to apprehend the individual and the felonious and such and so and so, and they both look at Hoppy, and Hoppy said, the dude stole the TV. They said, oh, okay, now we understand. Smitty used all this crazy language, but they didn't understand it, and Hoppy had to translate it, correct?
Right.
Okay, not saying that we can't understand this, but understanding steroids and endocrinology, that might not be everyone's cup of tea. Okay. So when you talk about a feedback loop, if we look at that in the language of Dianetics, that's a cycle of action. That's someone that's stuck. In Buddhism, it's called samskara. Samskara. In psychology, it's called obsessive compulsive disorder. Well, what does that mean? All of us have a habit that I won't say all of us have. There are those in the room that have a habit. We have to do things a certain way. And even though we try to change how we do certain things, to change is almost painful. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's almost painful to do things differently because we have been programmed to do it in this way. And even though we say, I'm not going to do that any longer, the longer we resist that, the more painful. I don't want to use the word painful. It produces a discomfort that gets under our skin. Does that make sense?
More resistant. Yes, sir.
Okay. So then what we have to do sometimes is we give in so that that craving goes away. But in Buddhism says that the body is never satisfied. So once the body can get us to give in, it leaves us alone for a part of the time, then it comes back again. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Some of us say, I'm gonna stop eating ice cream. Then after about a day or two, you're climbing the walls like that woman. What was that movie? Legion, that old woman that was climbing up the walls, that she was possessed. Those that like movies. You give up sugar for 24 hours and you're about to lose your mind, right? Okay. Some of us, I remember one time, this was when I was a child, I was addicted to Pepsi. I had to have a Pepsi every morning when I was at school. You know, we all have something that we're wrestling with. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why did God make devil? To show forth and prove that he's all wise and righteous, that he can make a devil, which is weak and wicked, and give him power to rule the earth for 6,000 years and then destroy the devil in one day without falling the victim to the devil's civilization. We have to have these things to wrestle with to prove that we're God. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
You know, like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yes, he did.
We can all say we're a martial artist until we get in the ring. Okay, so we can all say what we want, but we have to be tested and tried, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Shireen.
Yes, I'm just thinking for those of us that listen to gospel, Donald Lawrence has a song called Let Me Be Spiritual. And one of the lines, he says, we're not we're not natural beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a natural experience.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. I agree. We see ourselves as human beings being spiritual, but really we're spiritual beings that are learning things about human experiences. Go ahead, Sister Angela. Thank you, Sister Shireen.
Yes, sir. Before I leave, doesn't it seem that the grand design is perfect unity of both worlds, the physical and the spiritual?
Well, that's
because as you were talking, especially about the flesh, and for those who have ever fasted, especially your first fast, if you can go back to a time where you did your first 3 or 5 day fast, we didn't know what to call it. I know I did not know what to call it, and it did give me more ability to resist, but there was something going on inside my mind and my spirit. I isolated, I thought clearer and faster, and I thought of things that I never thought of before, which was new to me, is not new to Allah. And I think I became more in tune with the unseen, though my body was being denied nourishment at the same time. So I kind of went there when I heard you talking about this physical experience.
Yes, ma'am. And a very quick explanation as to why you experienced that is this. Even though the Most High Elijah Muhammad has taught about it in Hadith to Live, you know, and this has been in the nation ever since the nation's been here. In book 2 on page, I want to say page 50 or page 51, I think it's page 50, the Most High Elijah Muhammad says, if you want to advance spiritually, fast for 2 to 3 days. I believe he says fast for 3 days if you want to spiritually advance. Now, here's what takes place on a biological level. After the first 24 hours, your body will convert from burning carbohydrates, and from 12 to 18 hours, it's converting from carbohydrates to what's called ketones. Okay. And if you notice, whenever you do a fast, after about 18 to 20 hours, that's when the first cravings really get nasty, at least for me. I could tell the craving. I can look and you can almost set your watch at 18 hours. As you get to the 24-hour mark, into the 48-hour mark, your body converts, because your body only has a store of carbs for about 18, perhaps to 24 hours. Then your body has a reserve that it keeps in store, but it begins to burn what's called ketones. It starts to make fuel from your fat. And the brain works better off of ketones than it does off carbohydrates. After about the 24 to 40-hour mark, your body produces a chemical that is like fertilizer for the brain, and you actually begin to renew brain cells. So there's a whole method, there's a whole science behind the 3-day fast. The Most High Elijah Muhammad didn't go into the science of it. He just said the 3-day fast and you elevate spiritually. Modern science is basically bearing witness to what he's been teaching the whole time.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's just real quick science behind it. But there's a chemical. And also what happens is after approximately 3 days, your pineal gland begins to produce a chemical called DMT. That's called the spirit molecule. And what that does is that allows you to have these spiritual experiences like the minister was speaking about at the janaza.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
I kind of shied away from fasting because of that. I felt like I was going up too high and I couldn't get myself together.
There's individuals in the Zoom meeting, I won't go into depth on this, I'll just touch on it, but we've experienced what's called the witch riding your back, that sleep paralysis. And we don't realize that we were programmed to be afraid of it.
Right.
Really, that experience is the doorway to a higher level of frequency of thought and spirituality. But we were taught to be scared of it because the witch is riding your back.
Right, right.
You're about to have a spiritual experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we do it a lot. We just haven't learned to recognize it.
Well, we're afraid of it. And when it happens, when you first have it, it's scary. It's scary.
I can imagine.
Because you literally think someone's in the room with you. You think someone's on you. And that's not the case. But that's a whole different lecture for a whole different time.
Can I share this part in
of course, yes.
As you was going over the ketones and the DMT, which I'm going to go study, inshallah. I got so much stuff on my list. I speak to Dr. Patina quite often. And I come to realize between this Zoom and a few other things in her, believers in particular that are overweight, she don't believe, and now I see what she's saying, it has anything to do with what we're eating. We have an unprecedented stress level, which the cortisol in our system is not allowing that fat to be burned off. You understand what I'm saying? So if we put our stress levels to where they should, because we shouldn't be. Look, Muhammad got the devil on the run. The 6,000 years is up. It is our time. However, from what you said about the Atlantic and the Pacific, we have to throw off this mind that their doom is our doom. Their doom is not our doom. It's the God's time. Thank you. I just had to share that. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah. See you on Closing the Gap.
Excellent. And Sister Angela, make sure you get a chance to get on YouTube to watch the remainder of this, because I'm actually going to show the foods that we consume that increase the steroids, that the food actually keeps us aberrated.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. So today, this was the last day of the Unity Fast. And so for some reason, right after the mosque, I became ravenous. I was so ravenous, I was feeling weak and sleepy. And then as I was driving, I saw that my tire light was on. And I began to worry about my tire light. And then I was no longer ravenous. And then when I got home, then I checked my tire and I said, I've got to take care of this now. Absolutely now, because I don't know if the tire has a nail or a screw or whatever. I just don't know. So I just took care of that. I had a mobile unit come and change my tire and everything. And so now I no longer have that worry about my tire. And then I started thinking about my stomach again. But it was pretty close to 4 o'clock. So that was all right. So it is a matter of mind. It's like Dr. Muhammad said, your mind, you said your stomach is not the boss. Your mind is the boss. Brain, it's the boss. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That reactive mind wants to rule. Because remember, one of the principles of Dianetics is survival. The reactive mind wants to survive too. Sister said, if it's not one thing, it's another. You're right. Most definitely. Okay. We got a little time left. So now going back on the steroids, what happens is that in a in a stressful environment, our body produces steroids. It produces something called CRF, and I'm going to show this a little bit more detail. That is called cortisol release. I think it's called cortisol release factor. It's the chemical that sets the stage to produce cortisol, and cortisol is a stress hormone. And the more cortisol you have in your system, it makes it so difficult to lose weight because of this stress hormone. It says in humans, the result can be extremely limited patterns of behavior and response, which eventually drive people into an emotional black hole. The reason we can get stuck like this is because these feelings get retained in the memory, not just the brain, but all the way down to the cellular level, okay? So this stress and anxiety is not something that's just in the brain. It's actually, you ever feel like have you ever had a feeling where you want to just unzip your body and step out of it because it seems like this body is just being in it is stressful? Have you ever experienced that? Maybe I'm the only one that experienced that, but this body was just aggravating, and it's almost like your skin is crawling. Does that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Skin crawling. Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
That's the nervous system.
It's the nervous system, definitely. In Molecules of Emotion, it says the memory of the trauma is stored by these and other changes at the level of the neuropeptide receptor. These are little sites that are on each cell, some occurring deep in the interior of the cell at the very roots of the receptor. This is taking place body-wide. Although such changes can be reversed and need not be permanent, this takes time. So it's like we got to give up the habit, but the habit is chemical and it's connected to our physical body. It's like we go through withdrawal. Okay. Depression is a molecule. So she says, now here comes the connection to clinical depression. Ever since studies done 30 years ago, we've known that stress increases with steroid production. Depressed people typically have high levels of these stress steroids. In fact, depressed people are in a chronic state of ACTH activation because of a disrupted feedback loop that fails the signal when there are sufficient levels of steroid in the blood. Now, for those that are new to the room, ACTH, Sister Ina, you said you had auditing before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you had your auditing, did you get a real good cry?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Okay. The reason why that works is every time over the course of our life, we've endured stressful situations, our body has accumulated ACTH, which is a chemical called adrenocorticotropic hormone. It's a natural hormone that the body produces under stressful situation. But what happens is over a prolonged period of time, and we're in environments, and if we're around people that are constantly keeping us at a stressed level, the body is always producing the ACTH. L. Ron Hubbard says that ACTH is like a glue that keeps the engrams in place. ACTH over time wears down the immune system. So as the immune system wears down, what happens? Sicknesses increase. For women, just generally speaking, women will get the lupus, fibroid myalgia, the lumps in the breast, tumors, multiple sclerosis, and there's a couple other ones. There's one book called Deadly Emotion, where they linked particular emotions to particular diseases. Another, a great book to read. For men, typically high blood pressure, problems with the prostate, cardiac arrhythmias, okay? And this is all based on accumulation of ACTH. So when we go through processing, what happens is when you take someone back on a time track, you recreate that environment. The auditor brings that person back to that event and brings everything to the surface. So what happens is the way you get the ACTH out of the body so that your immune system can get back to normal and so that your body can begin to heal, ACTH comes out in the tears. So when L. Ron Hubbard talks about releasing charge, that charge is the negative energy that's contained in the tears. And on a chemical level, charge is ACTH. And that's why after a good cry, a person feels better. Because when we cry grief, our body gets rid of ACTH, but the body also produces a chemical called endorphins. Endorphins represent what's called endogenous morphine. It's a naturally occurring drug, feel-good drug that the body produces. A good cry, and I don't know about you, sister, but I know when I went through processing, I probably almost went through one whole box of Kleenex. I had one of real strong snotting crying where everything came out. And then afterwards, for the next couple of days, I felt like a whole new person. Okay. So when we say we carry around baggage, we do. We carry around baggage in the form of molecules. Autopsies almost always show a 10-fold higher level of CRF in the cerebral spinal fluid of those who killed themselves compared to those who died from other causes. And then she says, sounds like this, CRF is a depression peptide. A peptide is just a molecule. So when you see high levels of CRF in a person's system, 9 times out of 10, that person is either depressed or they're suppressing. They might act like they're okay, but they're suppressing a lot of emotional baggage. And the CRF is cortisol releasing factor. So this CRF is something that triggers the release of what's cortisol, which is a steroid. Does that make sense, everyone?
So, Brother Lukman, so you're saying these steps is what leads to mental illness?
Mental illness is based on what happens to us. It's thought, right? It's what happens to us, but our thought gets converted into chemistry. And the chemistry becomes illness. So mental illness is exactly what it is. It's mental, but it's also physical. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. L. Ron Hubbard calls them psychosomatic illnesses. And when you look in the Dianetics Book 1 and you look at the diseases that he promotes as psychosomatic, they line up exactly with the illnesses that are presented in the problem book and problem number 1, number 2, number 5, and number 6 with the uncle and the wife of W.D. Farad. Same exact illnesses. Dianetics, problem book. Okay. The reactive mind feeds on stress. The reactive mind, the genetic entity, the physical body, survives as long as our body maintains an imbalanced environment. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
So, Brother Lukman, you said that you're going to put up the different foods, you say?
Yes.
That causes stresses. Are you saying you're going to do that when you put this up on YouTube? Or...
No, I'm gonna put that up right now. I'm coming to it.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I'm gonna give that to us tonight.
Okay, so that's the chemicals imbalance in our bodies. That and it comes. Some of it comes from food, or most of it comes from food.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The spiritual food. I was thinking about the minister saying that we have 2 wombs, you know, which is our mind, and how we're feeding different things in the womb. And the How to Eat to Live says that you can eat the right type of food, but if you think the wrong type of thoughts, and I'm looking at an equation with all of that. equals you're messed up. You know.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You can take the brain on one side of the equation and put the stomach on the other. The Most High Elijah Muhammad said, whatever affects one also affects the other, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you look at it from the perspective of holistic medicine, if you take a picture of the small intestines and look at a picture of the brain, they look identical. The way the brain looks and the way the small intestines look. And in holistic medicine, the small intestines is considered to be the lower brain. And it just so happens there's a lot of receptors that are connected to mental illness that are in the gut. So mental illness is not just in the mind. The way the enemy has this thing fixed up, just remember the letters SOS. SOS is when you're in distress, right?
Right. Yes,
salt, oil, and sugar. That's the combination of fast food. Go to any fast food place, Popeyes, Krispy Kreme, Mickey D's, Wendy's, salt, oil, sugar.
Process.
Those three combinations. Those three combinations do not exist in nature naturally. And that's how the industry keeps us addicted. Salt, oil, and sugar. Okay. Is that it, Sister Denise?
Yeah, sir. Yes,
is that
sir.
it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I got a light bulb over my head right now.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yes,
sir.
All right.
Thank you.
So the enemy on the outside is surviving by feeding the enemy that is within. Why does the devil keep our people illiterate? So that he can use us for a tool and a slave, right? He keeps us blind to himself so he can master us. He's keeping us, he's ruling us through the information he teaches us and the food that he's feeding us. Diet and stress. Foods that increase cortisol will increase the potential for depressive states. So if the science shows that cortisol and steroids in their presence increases the levels of depression, then that would imply anything that produces or promotes steroids within the body will produce depression, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now what foods increase steroids? Therefore, we're using foods as comfort foods. And at the same time, this is the noose that we're putting around our own neck to hang ourselves. Because if food is something we wrestle with, the same food we're using as comfort food is the same thing that's keeping us depressed. These foods include, now you're going to see something about all these, you can see something in common with all these foods. Sugary foods and drinks. Processed foods. Frozen foods, chips, cookies, red meat, high saturated fats. And one of the reasons why we eat these foods is because these foods cause the brain to produce what's called dopamine. And dopamine is a feel-good drug. So this is why this is a big thing for me, because when I'm stressed, I snack. That's something I'm wrestling with. So that's why I do a lot of this. This is self-medication for me. My studying, I'm also using to deal with the monkey that's on my back right now. Okay. But these are all the foods. It's real easy. These are the foods we're told to stop eating and how to eat to live.
That's right.
That's how it's easy. If we just follow how to eat to live, it's already designed to get us through this. You won't get stressed out by eating pineapple and asparagus and maybe
right.
Have you ever been so, I'm so addicted to maybe bean pie, but that's more addicted to the sugar than navy bean. But you don't see people say, man, I'm just addicted to eating broccoli. I just can't stop eating broccoli. It never happened. So if chemistry increases depression, then so does our diet. we're using food to deal with depression or mental illness, and at the same time, the food is also causing the depression and the mental illness. Does that make sense?
Didn't know that though.
Okay.
Because you're thinking that it's helping you when you are depressed.
It's only helping for the moment.
It's a temporary fix.
It's only a temporary fix. If you look at the bottom of the screen, there is a website there. And if you write down that information, or I'll send this link out in the email. Oh, Sister Ina, Sister, I didn't get. If you'd like to be placed on the email list to stay informed of all of our Zoom meetings, just if you don't mind, put your email in the chat and I'll add you to the list. But
Yes,
this
sir.
is the website where I found the information. There's a whole article. There's a lot more information. I just hit the surface of it. Okay, that's at the bottom of the screen, but I'll send it out. I'll send it out to everyone as well. Okay, we're going to look only at one ayat because we don't have time to really go into it. We're going to look at one ayat as an equation. We're going to handle questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. And for those that don't know, Brother Tuquan and Brother Aaron, they have a Closing the Gap podcast. It starts at 8. That's why I'm going to try to get through this. And if anyone has that link, if you could put that link in the chat, so those that want to go to that Zoom after this one, you can click right in. Okay. Here's how we look at an equation, ayat as an equation. We're going to take the word devil, we're going to input reactive mind. Okay, so we're going to substitute the word, just like in an equation. We're going to substitute the word reactive mind or genetic entity into the equation and then solve for the unknowns. Okay, that's what we do when we do math. We input a number, we figure out the unknowns, and we produce an output. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have to go based on voice because I don't see everyone. So once we substitute the concept, the reactive mind, will the ayat provide more data? Oh, yes, it will, most definitely. Okay, so now we're going to evaluate. I was going to do more than one equation, but we only got time for one. So now, here's an ayat. But the devil made an evil suggestion to them, that they might make manifest to them that which had been hidden from them of their shame. That comes from Surah 7. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but I believe that is Surah 7, ayat number 20. Okay. I hope that is correct. Oh, wait, got it right here. Yes. 7, ayat 7 and 20. Now, you see the word devil?
Yes, sir.
That's where we're going to input. We're going to use this like an equation. Since the word devil is equal to the reactive mind, right? Then we can do what's called the law of substitution, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not looking at the word, we're looking at what the word represents. Remember, X and Y, 2 different letters, but they have the same meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Devil is just an Arabic word that represents the reactive mind, and the reactive mind is just a Dianetic term that represents the devil. Can we say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we say, but the reactive mind made an evil suggestion to them, that he might make manifest to them which had been hidden from them of their shame. So now we're going to look at some other elements in this ayat to see if they help us to understand the reactive mind now. Y'all follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what is the evil suggestion that's made by the reactive mind? Who is the he that manifests what is hidden? With regards to their shame, who is the word there referring to? And what is their shame? What does that actually mean? So now we're going to break down each one of these and see if it gives us some data that helps us to understand Dianetics. So then we could understand different levels of Dianetics just by understanding one ayat of the Holy Quran. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The evil suggestion in the Holy Quran is called an engrammic command or a demon circuit in the Dianetics. Engrammic commands are action phrases the reactive mind uses to maintain one in a state of aberration and prevent the entry into the engrammic bank. So what are they? You've heard of bouncers, correct? You might not have heard of callbacks, but there's an engrammic command called a callback, and that's found in the Dianetic Technical Dictionary. You've heard of deniers. You've heard of holders. You've heard of groupers. You've heard of misdirectors. You've probably never heard of scramblers. That's another one that's found in the Dianetic Technical Dictionary. Then you have what's called valence shifters. Okay, those are engrammic commands. And when you audit someone, when you detect these circuits, there's something that the person is gonna say. And when you hear that, you'll say, oh, that's an engrammic command. I'm getting close to the reactive mind. The reactive mind is trying to bounce me away so that I can't get close to it in order to solve this computation. Does that make sense? Everyone good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the ayats of the Holy Quran reveal that the devil acts the same way with regards to keeping us from our righteousness. This is going to be another Zoom meeting we're going to do. Meaning, we're going to find some ayats where the devil does the same thing. The devil might group things together. The devil might misdirect. The devil might hold us. The devil might deny. The devil in the Holy Quran is going to be in the engrammic commands can be found in the Holy Quran. That's another Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the comparison now, in Arabic, the word for evil suggestion is waswasa, which means to whisper. So in Surah 114, it says the whispering of the slinking devil. That would be the same as the whispering of the reactive mind, or the suggestion of the reactive mind. So at 9 o'clock at night, you have a craving for whatever you have a craving for. You want to go get that General Chow's chicken or whatever it is, and you're leaving the house at 8:30, 9 o'clock. That's the whispering of the slinking devil who's making a suggestion to go out to get whatever it is that you're getting. Does that make sense? I heard a giggle back there, so someone likes Chinese food.
No, it's the point of sneaking out.
Grown people sneaking out. You don't want the children to know. The word waswasa means to prompt or tempt to evil. It means wicked suggestion. It means to feel uneasy. It is a disturbance. It means to be obsessed with delusion. So here you have an Arabic word that shows ARC or agreement with Dianetics, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so now in
sir.
Dianetics, what is a command or circuit? It's a part of an individual's bank that behaves as though it were someone or something separate from him, and that either talks to him or goes into action of its own accord, and may even, if severe enough, take control of him while it operates. That's the whispering of the slinking devil. In Dianetics, it's called an engrammic command or circuit. Can we say the whispering devil is the same as the circuit? Two different words, two different concepts. But when we get past the words, we see what? The concepts are the same. One is in the language of Arabic, One is in the language of Scientology, correct? Okay.
Okay.
He that makes manifest. In Arabic, it means to manifest or make apparent, to come to light, to show, to disclose, or to reveal. Now, what is that concept in Dianetics? What part of the mind reveals, discloses, or brings things to light so that you can see what's there? The bank monitor. He monitors for both the reactive engram bank and the standard banks. When he is asked for a datum by the auditor or I, he will hand out a datum to the auditor via I. One could postulate that the file clerk is a group of attention units with ready access to the reactive mind and to the standard memory banks, in which in common mental operation forwards data through to I as memory. So the he that makes manifest, can we say that that's the file clerk?
You know, that term, the bank monitor, we don't even have we used that at all in our sessions? That doesn't connect with me.
Okay, in Dianetics, the bank monitor, and I think where the holdup is on the word bank. When I talk about bank where there's money.
No, depositing.
We're talking about the engram bank.
Yes. Okay.
The engram bank. So the file clerk is like the one that sits over the engram bank, and he has the, not that there's a real person running around getting files. It just represents a concept that there's an aspect of our mind that can reach back and touch memories and bring memories back to our remembrance. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has anyone ever used the repeater technique in auditing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, have you ever experienced this? You bump into a friend from high school. High school has been many years ago. And they say, yeah, remember John? Yeah, John went into the military. John who? You know John. John. Oh, yeah, John. That's repeater technique. It's something about saying something over and over again. It's like pumping water. Sooner or later, the water comes to the surface, right? The mind operates the same way. Okay. So this file clerk has the ability to, we think about something, it brings back that information. And just when we have these Zoom meetings, certain things are said, we go back on our time track and we bring back stuff that we haven't thought about in years. Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Okay. So what is hidden from both of them? Because the Arabic word is wariya, but the root word is wari. The word hidden also means concealed. It also means to kindle a fire, to hide, or keep a secret. But the Arabic is saying that's hidden from both of them. That's how it translates. Does not the reactive mind keep the secrets from the pre-clear and the auditor? Okay. Their shame. Who is there and what is the shame? When you look at the word there, or shame, excuse me, it means to become bad, to grieve, to be afflicted, or to be tormented, to be annoyed or angry. So when we're talking about their shame, we're talking about their anger, their annoyance. I'll call you back in a minute. Their anger, their annoyance, their torment, their affliction. Does that make sense? Everyone still with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But now here's the thing. Their shame, meaning the shame that you might carry, the shame that I might carry, does not belong to us, because the shame does not belong to the one who's aberrated. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
The aberrated individual is carrying around baggage that belongs to someone else. That's why we're aberrated, because we think it's ours. And it's not. Y'all with me?
Kinda.
Whatever habits we have right now, these are habits that are the result of something that was done to us. We are not the author of the aberrated behavior that we are engaged in. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, okay, yes.
Okay, we're not the author of it. So when we are dramatizing an action that is called an overt in Dianetics, or in Islam, we call it a sin. In the language of Dianetics, they would say that we are in the valence of someone else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, if we are by nature righteous, then when we are doing other than our own self, look at the language, we are acting other than our own self. In Dianetics, that's called being out of valence. And when you study what's called the life continuum, which is another course in Dianetics, what we do now is based on the behavior of someone in our life that failed, that passed away, or they're no longer with us, and we took on their habit or their behavior. Can anyone see anything they do that it was either something that a mother did, a father did, an aunt did, an uncle did, or someone from our past?
Yes, 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 yes.
We took on their habit.
Yes, some of it's good, some of it could be bad.
Yeah. So now when you take this equation, but the devil made an evil suggestion to them that he might make manifest to them that which had been hidden from them of their shame. Now in the equation, you have all these variables. So now we're going to input something into all these variables. So after we solve for all the variables, the equation becomes, now we're going to input all the green words where the red words are. And then by doing that, this is what the ayat becomes. But the reactive mind made a command or contained a circuit to the pre-clear that the file clerk would manifest to the pre-clear and auditor that which had been hidden or occluded from view in the engram bank from their family trauma. Does that sound like it's Dianetics?
Yes.
I see I got Sister Peggy. I saw a smile on your face, and I saw Brother Timothy.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So by studying our Holy Quran, we can get deeper into our tech. Okay. If you look at this ayat, this is describing the process of auditing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Summary. The Holy Quran is a book of formulae. Can we agree on that? That's just one ayat. There's 6,260 or 6,360 ayats that we haven't even touched yet. So now each individual may have the ability to use it in accordance to their purpose. Meaning, when I read the Holy Quran, I see formulae, I see equations, I see math, and there's some ayats I look at, I see chess strategy or strategy for warfare, because I'm an avid student I like studying the art of war. I like studying what's called the Book of Five Rings. I like warfare. I like chess. I'm a chess addict. And there are ayats in the Holy Quran, I apply it to my study of chess. All of us have our own purpose. Each one of us is our own book. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so based on our purpose, when we read the Holy Quran, we'll see the wisdom based on our purpose. I believe that's how it works. As we clear the words in Arabic, the mathematician will see math, the scientist will see science, and the chemist will see chemistry, and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Every individual will harmonize based on your purpose. Meaning, it's like the Savior is building a whole mother plane, and each one of us is a part of the ship. And as we study in our own secluded space, each one of us is building our part of the engine. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Quran allows us to access that which gives an explanation of all things. We must learn our original language. Learning Arabic, I don't speak Arabic, At this point, I know how to use an Arabic dictionary, but I'm striving to learn how to speak it. The axioms, postulates, laws, and rules of Dianetics, the science of the mind, can be found in the Holy Quran. Can we agree on that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, family, does anyone have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, anything at all based on what we received this evening?
I gotta file this.
Go ahead, Sister Shireen.
I just like screamed out in frustration. Oh, they kept us so damn dumb. But I'm sorry to use that language, but that's really how I feel, because like now I'm trying to learn Spanish, and and I know the minister said he wants us to learn Spanish, but we also need to learn our original tongue. And I'm like, I'm just now, comprehending how to do certain pronouns in Spanish, and I've been studying it for years. But the thought came to me that children, when they're very young, they can learn 5, 6, 7 languages all at one time. Their brains are just, primed for that at that age. And so I got to figure out a way how to, all these things that, I'm drawn to studying is a discipline in their own right, so anyway.
Well, I will say this, Sister Shireen, and this is just from my own personal appearance. When you study the tech, especially the study tech of Scientology, when you study cycles of action, word clearing, and some other things that we'll go over at another time during our Wednesday class, if you start applying that, you're going to notice that your ability to learn, you're going to increase your ability to learn in less time. Your learning ability is going to actually speed up. That's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
Because when you understand how the tech of study works, how L. Ron Hubbard is teaching how to study, he's hitting it from both sides of the brain, and that makes all the difference in the world. But that method of teaching actually comes, that's our original way of doing things. Prior to, when you go prior to that 50,000 year decline of our civilization, we were taught, this is how we operated. So go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Okay, so suppose one has a gift of music. So how would one search ayats in the Holy Quran? Let's say if music supports their purpose. So how would you look in the Holy Quran?
So you want to use the Holy Quran for equations dealing with music.
How would you? For instance, how did you find them? Because I know that music is a form of mathematics.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
But how did you do that? How did you find that particular ayat?
Okay.
Did you just say, okay, this looks like something that comes from well, it does. It looks like what might have been in the Bible about Adam and Eve, but not maybe or maybe not. So if one has that verbal, that linguistic, that musical gift, and how would they search the Holy Quran for ayats?
I got goosebumps when you said that, but I'll explain how I do it with the math. I carry a notepad with me everywhere I go. And sometimes when I have a chance to get quiet, a thought just pops in my head. I write the thought down. Surah 96 says, Allah teaches man by the pen what man knew not, correct? I write that thought down. Now, who was not in the class on Wednesday? Who was not in the class on Wednesday morning? Okay.
I was not.
Okay. If you've already done this exercise, you don't have to do it again. But if you weren't there on Wednesday, just do this quick exercise. Take a piece of paper, draw a circle on that piece of paper. Okay. Once you draw the circle on a piece of paper, put a dot at the center of that circle. Now, that dot represents you, and that circle represents everything everything inside the circle represents everything you know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, now, do you know everything?
No.
That means there's more information that's where?
Outside the circle.
Outside the circle. So now, if you could increase the diameter of your thinking to go beyond your present circumference, what happens to the circle?
It's larger.
It becomes larger. Right. This means you have to begin to ask questions that seem strange to other people, but you have to ask the right person, the right people. You have to ask questions that go beyond your understanding. Right. I carry a pad of paper, and sometimes a thought out of the blue hits my mind. I write it down. I have no idea where the thought comes from. You know, like for example, Sister Peggy, it was just one day I was sitting there thinking, I'm just like, if the reactive mind is the devil, then every place in the Holy Quran where it talks about devil, all of those ayats have to be talking about the reactive mind. That's how the thought comes. I write it down. Every time I have a thought, I put all my thoughts in one notebook. And I might not be able to study it all right now. So some stuff I go back, I write on it, and then I leave it alone. I write on it, I leave it alone. But what happens is, as I go through ayat, because there's a lot of ayats that have the word devil in it. So that assignment will take me a long time. However, what I have noticed is that if I take the one ayat that has the word devil, and then I parse through the other words in Arabic, those words, when I go through the Arabic dictionary, bring me right to the same terminology that I find in the Dialectic Technical Dictionary. Now, I've never thought about it on the level of music. However, based on the vocabulary, now let me ask you this, is this an assignment you plan to take up?
I don't have verbal linguists. I don't have I'm verbal. My gift is verbal linguistic. I just said music, just as an example.
Okay, so off the top of my head, that's what I would do. And you just give me another assignment. In music theory, you have something called resonance, and you have something called dissonance. Dissonance is when two notes don't have harmony or agreement. And cognitive dissonance is a psychological term, but if you dig into the concept of cognitive dissonance, and I'm almost going to say off the top of my head, if you dig into because dissonance is coming from acoustics, which is the physics of sound, I almost want to think that there's something in dissonance that's in agreement with aberration. So that's how I would start the whole process. I'm gonna write down everything that we just spoke about, and now I go study. I look at the words in Arabic. I have a Holy Quran PDF, so I can type in a word, and it'll show me every place in the Holy Quran where I can find that word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So do you have a Holy Quran PDF?
No, but I can get one. Okay,
because I'll send it to you. I'll send you. I can send it to you. You can put it on your computer. You can put in a word and search it. And then another thing I do is this. Let me show you this real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Another tool I use is, let's see, let me go here. Let me go, where are you at? Where are you at? Come on, it's blocking my view here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Another thing I use, this is called the Qur'anicCorpus.com. So if I get a particular ayat, like I had ayat 720, okay, you can input the chapter here and the verse. You see that? And then what happens is I go right down here. This shows me the Arabic. And then over here, this shows me that this is a prefixed preposition. This is my verb. And then the more you do it, the more you understand the Arabic. I know that's WS, WS. These marks above, those are A's. But that just takes, the more you do it, you understand the Arabic letters. So this is the word in Arabic. You see how it's a hyperlink? If I press it, there's a little point. If I press that, it's going to show me all the places in the Holy Quran where I can find the word whisper.
This is a paid membership website?
This is free. This is a free website.
Oh.
Okay. So now, if the word whisper is the same as a demon circuit, then everywhere in the Holy Quran where I find the word whisper, I should be able to find data to give me more information on what a demon circuit is and what it does from the perspective of the Holy Quran. And then when I go up here, I get the word root, WS, WS. And then that's when I go into my Arabic dictionary that's fallen apart. And I actually look up the word and I clear it. Can you, oh, you probably can't see my dictionary, but I do word clearing. Can you see it? Okay. So you can see it's falling apart, right? It's time for a new one. And I do word clearing with the Arabic the same way you would do with Merriam-Webster and the English word. Same thing. And then what happens is the more you do it, you'll see certain ayats start to connect together. And then the information just pops up. Now for Sister Aina.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Did I cover everything?
Yes, homie.
No, I'm talking Sister Peggy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Aina, what we do is once we finish our Zoom meetings, we have a YouTube page called Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology. And I post all of the Zoom meetings here.
Okay.
So these are all the topics that we've covered up to this point. There's 50 here, but I have about 150 more that I haven't put up yet. But these are all the classes we've done where we've connected the Holy Quran to the Dianetics. And I will play these two real quick.
Start losing the power and effect of what was done. Listen, human beings can't handle things. And what God is going to do for us with the supreme wisdom and the supreme technology, is going to raise us from ignominy to greatness.
That's one thing the minister said about the tech. And this is the last one. And this is where we will end it.
Because from this point on, every day at the mosque is a class day. We're all in the classroom of God, and we will prepare the study on both sides, the study of the technology and the study of the supreme wisdom. And then once we get to a certain point, I'm turning you loose on this world.
That is why we do what we do. Because the minister said that that is to be done. So, Sister Ina, if you have any questions, just put your email in the chat if you don't mind. I'll put you on the list, and every time we have a class, you'll be notified. Wednesday morning, we do the same thing, but we use mathematics, physics, chemistry, science, algebra. We actually use mathematics as a demo kit to understand Dianetics and the Holy Quran. Sister Ania, I haven't heard from you. You with us?
Oh, I just want to say thank you.
You're very welcome.
I learned a lot. How many numbers in the universe blew my mind. The question alone blew my mind. Then the answer. Then it was another one you said, I forgot which one that really stuck with me, but apparently it's going now, but I'm sure it'll come back. But thank you very much. I'm looking forward to learning more. And let me just say this came to my mind, right? Dr. Student Minister Sister Ava Muhammad did a master class. And in one of those master classes, she did several. One of those master classes, she said that there's going to come a time that we are directly taught by the scientists, face to face. All right, thank you. Assalamu
alaikum salam. And I'll say that I'm not one of them.
Okay, just checking.
No, ma'am. I'm just a student who's trying to get rid of his aberrated mind.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Sister Ania, you have anything before we end it? You with us? Yeah,
yes, sir. I'm still here, okay. But I don't have any questions at this time. Just drinking all of this knowledge and wisdom in. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. How's my big brother doing?
He's doing great. All praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir.
So, Sister,
he was on earlier.
Yeah, I saw him briefly. So Wednesday, Sister Ania, I'm putting together the translation from verbal to algebraic. I've been working on it over the weekend, and inshallah, we'll have it ready on Wednesday for us.
Okay, yes, sir. I may be on the road driving.
Okay.
At the class time, but
that's okay.
I'll try to tune in, but I may not be able to.
That's fine.
Say anything.
I'll record it and put it on the YouTube for you, so you can watch it at your own convenience.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sister Patricia, you get the last comment.
Not to pull too away from what we were just speaking about, but a while back you were talking about a group that were getting some housing or something together, or land. Are you able to speak on that, or you don't have any, update information? Or
yeah, that's being done through Brother Scott and Sister Erica. It's called Seed. If you go to Seed Incorporated,
SEED.
SEED. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick so you can get the actual facts on that. Let me see. Let me close that out. This was, here it is. It's Seed Incorporated. Let me show you I'll share my screen. This is the screen. You can get in contact with Brother Scott or Sister Erica. When the minister spoke in Tuskegee and said that this is the seminal fluid of the hereafter, this is the brother and the sister he was talking about. And we're in the process of getting a large plot of land and beginning to build a community of Muslims or anyone who is looking for a righteous environment. That is the goal of what we're doing right now. So if you have any questions, you can go on this website. You can contact either Brother Scott or Sister Erica, and they can give you all the information that you need to give you all the details about what we're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, family. Thank you for your patience and your time, your questions. I pray Allah that we got something from this. If you could, if you had, as they say in the orgs, if you had a success story, or if you had a success, if you could put together a success story, and you can send it to myself. I'm going to make it a part of, inshallah, I'm gonna try to make it a part of something that I'm getting ready to send to the minister. I'm in the process of putting together some information to send to the minister. So if you have any success stories, if you've gained anything from these Zoom meetings, if you could just do a quick write-up, send it in an email, and God willing, I'll be able to send it along with a packet to Chicago. Other than that, family, I pray Allah to see us all on Wednesday, 10 o'clock a.m. Wednesday morning, Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, family, we can go ahead and close it out. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. The Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master, the day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors. Not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, but those who go astray if they've heard thy teaching. Amen. Thank you, family. Was anyone able to put the link to the Closing the Gap podcast?
I think I saw it in the
Saw it in the chat? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Inshallah, I will see you there. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Salam.
Walaikum salam.